That's Cindy, our newest the first one that comes to mind is extremely careful because parents of children defensiveness looks like they're very quickly.
Those guys are trained, they are hired in these psychologists, and no one says that because our son is older, so nobody wants to say that. But this was my field, special needs, and I saw that when they brought them here, and they were confused, like all over the place, and we don't deal with them enough. I need some counseling on it.
It's really troubling because you don't want to close off any communication. You want to open it up. And as I say, you can only, what you would, your nature is to be more gentle, and you would be with your children for sure. I think we'll get started.
Fair warning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Treasure Coast Unitarian Universalist Congregation in Stuart, Florida. Today is Sunday, June 4th, 2023, and my name is Barney Miller Moore. I will be your worship associate today. We are a welcoming congregation. We welcome people of all gender identities, ethnicities, ages, and backgrounds. It is wonderful to see all of our members in the sanctuary and you also on YouTube. To be put on our email list or to find out more information about us, please go to our website at tcuuc.org and note the email link to request our online. Please, at this moment, silence your cell phones because the person you were expecting to call yesterday will call today. Visitors, if you're comfortable, please step up to the microphone and introduce yourself.
If you wish.
If you wish. No pressure. Okay. So, we're going to give you the announcements. Please join us on the first and third Tuesdays at Stewart Veterans Memorial Park downtown at noon for our bag lunch. And let's see, we had some more announcements. Is that it? Any more announcements? Is that it? Okay.
First and third discussion.
Oh, the discussion, right. The first and third discussion is
That's today at 11:45.
at 11:45 today. Okay. We'd like to give a big thank you to those who helped with service, Jackie Robbins, for our music, our greeters, thank you, our ushers, and of course our host, Karina Peloni, and our tech support, Rachel Valentino. And we don't have a hymn leader today, so if you want to lead the hymn, just come on up and, and do it. We'd like to thank Joanne Leone and Marguerite Gregory for the coffee and cookies in our social hall. And Reverend Bob MacDonald is in our pulpit today. And Jackie will give us our prelude now. Thank you. Thank you, Jackie. We'll light our chalice now. We light this chalice for the light of truth. We light this chalice for the warmth of love. We light this chalice for the energy of action. This is from Marianne Moore from the UU Family Prayers. Our opening words are a little different. They are taken from, some of you may be familiar with this, Bobby McFerrin. Don't worry, be happy. You know my Caribbean roots, okay? Don't worry, be happy. Here's a little song he wrote for you. You might want to sing it note for note. Don't worry, be happy. In every life we have some trouble, but when you worry, you make it double. So don't worry, be happy. If you got no place to lay your head, somebody come and took your bed, don't worry, be happy. Landlord says your rent is late. He might have to litigate. Don't worry, be happy. Got no cash, low on style? Got no friends to make you smile? Don't worry, be happy. When you worry, your face will frown, and it brings everybody down. So don't worry, be happy. There's no reason to be morass. Whatever it is, it will soon pass. Don't worry, be happy. Thank you. You know the song? Okay, yeah, I extract. Okay, so if you would like, please stand to sing our hymn, We're going to sing hymn 18, number 18. Hey, did I miss something? Oh, What Wondrous Love. Okay. My soul, my soul, wondrous love is this, my soul. Let us recite our affirmation, speaking the first verse and singing the second. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
The responsive reading is 652 in the back of our hymnal, entitled "The Great End in Religious Instruction" by William Ellery Channing, who's one of the colonial leaders of Unitarianism. The great end in religious instruction is not to stamp our minds upon the young, but to stir up their own, not to make them see with our eyes, but to look inquiringly and steadily with their own, not to give them a definite amount of knowledge, but to inspire a fervent love of truth, not to form an outward regularity, but to touch inward springs, not to bind them by ineradicable prejudices to our particular sect or peculiar notions, but to prepare them for impartial, conscientious judging of whatever subjects may be offered to their decision. Not to burden the memory, but to quicken and strengthen the power of thought. not to impose religion upon them in the form of arbitrary rules, but to awaken the conscience, the moral discernment. In a word, the great end is to awaken the soul, to excite and cherish spiritual life. And now our time of sharing matters of joy or sorrow or concern. We invite you to come to the mic and tell us yours. We ask that it be, not quite yet, we ask that it be brief and personal. And you know what I mean by that. I want to start out by telling you, of course, many of you were here yesterday and saw the send-off we gave to Richard Granite, whom we will miss immensely. The place was full as I've never seen it full, and his children spoke eloquently. I'm sure Richard would have been very proud of them. He was always very proud of them, Richard Granite. Let's move a stone for the families of Richard. Now, on a happy note, I want to tell you that on Friday I spoke to Phyllis Hall in Simsbury, Connecticut. I found her in a great spirit. Now, Phyllis is 95 or so, give or take. She said health problems. She had to go home early with her daughter this past season that she was down. But she told me that she's feeling much better. Her vision is fine. She's going to a wedding in California in July. I said, yours? And she said, no, one of her family members. And she's looking forward to being down here in the wintertime. So it was really happy to hear from her and know that she's in the good spirit she's in. Phyllis Hall, that's a joy. Who else has a matter of joy or sorrow to share? Oh yes, Judith. Judith was in line, yes.
It was an absolutely wonderful service yesterday. And I knew Richard was a teacher, but it wasn't until I met his family when I realized what a fabulous parent he must have been. Such creative, talented, caring children. What else could you ask for than a legacy like that? Yeah. They were raised Unitarian. Oh my God, no wonder. That's what Unitarian children turn out like.
I have friends who call it being a Jew-you-you. I had the great joy in yesterday realizing that I knew Richard from years ago because he would always be by Kit's side, and Kit sang in the Treasure Coast Community Choir and would always come over to me afterwards, and she was very petite, and she'd say, hi, I'm Kit, and I loved your playing, and Richard was always there holding her and bringing her, and so it all came back to me, and that was wonderful to be playing his send-off. And the other joy is that yesterday would have been my father's, he passed away 21 years ago yesterday, so I got to think about my dad a lot.
Janet.
Well, today we weren't expecting to be here at church because we were expecting my older daughter and her new husband to visit us from Kentucky. And just about a day or two ago, we got a call saying that his daughter, who is a Fulbright scholar at Vanderbilt, had some sort of mental breakdown of sorts and has been taken actually, I think by the police, to the Vanderbilt Psychiatric Hospital. So we are, of course, on pins and needles waiting to hear what could have possibly led to this. On a joyful note, yesterday, as we were, a number of us, working after the funeral with the setup, with refreshments and so forth. It is just amazing to me how people pitch in. And no one says, hey, you know, I'm kind of sick of doing this. I do it every week or whatever. I mean, everybody, you know, all the people that you're used to seeing were in there. We were enjoying each other. And to me, it just tells me that this church has horizons that we don't even know at this point.
Thank you, Janet. I felt that way too.
Hi, I'm Linda. I'm going to talk about yesterday, too. We came in yesterday, and Dan and I saw Nancy Granite, and we said, Dan, there's Nancy, and I wonder what she's doing here. I've known her for like 15 years in Greensboro. She's a lovely lady, very, very artistically talented. And Dan said, Linda, her last name is Granite. And I'm going, that's Richard's ex-wife. And all the years I knew her, she never said anything bad about him. I think, you know, it was, and she just loved her kids so much. So I think it's one of the things we all know where people just grow apart, because I really like them both. But it was so neat. And she said, like, you disappeared from Greensboro. Well, I realized that period of time during COVID, we don't think about now. Yeah, we weren't seeing each other. So anyway, everything is so connected, isn't it? It was lovely to see her. Thanks.
My dear old friend Claire, who went in the hospital 3.5 weeks ago, totally confused, you know, no short-term memory, anything. They found out she had osteomyelitis. She's been on antibiotics for a couple weeks. And yesterday I talked to her for a long time, and Claire is back. She is back to who she is, and we're all very happy.
I'm Ronnie Dembowski, and a friend of mine, but a closer friend of my friend Tony, passed away yesterday, and she lived half a year in the United States and half the year in France, and was fluent, of course, in both languages. And her boyfriend, she'd never married him for the last 30 years, came from France to be with her, and he speaks almost no English, and it's been very difficult, and of course it was very difficult that she died, but I just wanted to say something for her.
Sorry to hear that.
No promises, but this might be the last word about yesterday's service. The sorrow, of course, is that we had lost Richard as a member and a friend, and it's been a couple weeks ago now, but if you saw his obituary, I mean, Richard was an interesting guy, and he, even a short time, contributed here. He was newly elected to the board, so that's a sorrow. I just want to echo what Janet Rader just said. The joy was Friday. We had a group of people here who set up Heston Hall for the reception yesterday. Yesterday, we had a big group of people here helping to staff that, and it was a big job. We had 160 people in here yesterday. We took every chair out of the storage room. We took all of the chairs that we used outdoors and put them in here. 160 full. And it was a lot of thanks as owed to the people who pitched in and helped out. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, Bill. And we always, go ahead.
Good morning, I'm Barney again. Oh, well, no, I'm still Barney. I haven't been feeling well, so John took me out yesterday to do our favorite thing, which is thrifting. We went to the thrift store. I didn't come to the service, but we walked into the dogs and cats thrift store. That's what we call it, the animal thrift store. And I saw this woman, and I immediately recognized her. I'm good with faces but bad with names, but everything came through. And I said, Jennifer, and she said in her African dialect, Miss Barney, it's so good to see you again. How do you know me? And meaning, how did I remember her? And it was just so good. She turned to her daughter and said, when she first came to this country, that it was me who helped her become assimilated into the culture. And it just made me feel so good that 35 years ago, this woman, escaping the cruelties where the country that she came from. I can't remember if it was Nigeria or Kenya, but she brought her tiny daughter with her. Now this is a beautiful woman, and she said, thank you to me. Just made me feel so good.
Wow, that's wonderful. And who knew Barney had so many linguist skills? Oh, we move one more. We always move one more for people we haven't mentioned out loud, because we all have folks that we care about, worry about. This is for them. The meditation from the back of the hymnal is by Jacob Trapp and entitled To Worship. To worship is to stand in awe under a heaven of stars, before a flower, a leaf in sunlight, or a grain of sand. To worship is to be silent, receptive, before a tree astir with the wind, or the passing shadow of a cloud. To worship is to work with dedication and with skill. It is to pause from work and listen to a strain of music. To worship is to sing with the singing beauty of the earth. It is to listen through a storm to the still, small voice within. Worship is a loneliness seeking communion. It is a thirsty land crying out for rain. Worship is kindred fire within our hearts. It moves through the deeds of kindness and through acts of love. Worship is the mystery within us, reaching out to the mystery beyond. It is an inarticulate silence yearning to speak. It is the window of the moment, open to the sky of the eternal. Jacob Trapp. And now moments of silence. And now our hymn is 123, Spirit of Life. We hum a verse, we sing a verse, remaining seated. Now we come to our morning offering. We hope people experience joy and generosity here, and we hope you bring some generosity with you. We need you to. Now our ushers will pass the plate to you. And now I found a choral video that I think we have heard before and we'll probably hear again. But hopefully we'll hear it right now.
My life flows on in endless song of lovers' lamentation. I hear the ring of far off hymn that hails a new creation. Through all the tumult and the strife, I hear its music ringing. It sounds an echo in my soul. How can I keep from singing? No storm can shake my inmost calm, while to that rock I'm clinging. Since love is Lord of heaven and earth, how can I keep from Although the tempest round me roars, I hear the true love and living. Although the tempest round me roars, some songs in the night giving. No storm can shake my inmost calm, while to the rock I'm clinging. Since love is Lord of heaven and earth, how can I keep from My life flows on in endless song of lovers' lamentation. I
When I was in college, I've told you we had mandatory chapel. And every week there was a minister there, probably a graduate of the college, who had to give the weekly chapel. And I swear, the message every week was the one constant in life was change. Week after week, we heard about how we could count on change, but not in the sermon topics of the mandatory chapel. Now, I tell you that because you have heard about and read about the trip that Lori and I are taking to Germany, and then to Ireland and to Iceland, starting next Saturday. I looked at my email this morning, and I have a message from the travel company. I'm sorry, but your trip has been canceled. It has been canceled. And you have these choices, ending with, of course, a refund. In the meantime, I have a cat sitter set up. I have a reservation for a nice place in Hamburg. So what am I doing here this morning? I'm giving the sermon, that's right. I'm doing the sermon, and then to get home and figure out what else we're doing. This is kind of the season of graduation speeches. Last week, I quoted some Tom Hanks entitled, "Truth is Sacred." A number of graduation speeches I've seen were on the topic of the importance of truth. I mean, who would have thought that we need to be reminded of the importance of truth? But things that Tom Hanks said sounded pretty important to remember. Another one was Judy Bajoris telling me that they had gone to a graduation at Annapolis for a grand, I think. And the speaker was zoomed in President Zelensky from you know where. And that was pretty lifting. One of the best ones that I've read this year was from one of my favorite op-ed writers, Margaret Rendell. I'm not sure how you say her name, R-E-N-D-L, Margaret Rendell or Rendell or something. But what she said to start with, what in the world right do people our age have to give advice to 22-year-olds coming out of wherever? Look what we've done. I mean, should that be our first word? Don't look at what we've done. And for God's sake, don't do as we did. And then she went through a few things that we have to hope the graduates of today do better than we did. But she said that much better than I just did. And I mentioned some time ago Neil deGrasse Tyson's message along the same lines about truth. He said, "Objective truths are established by evidence. Personal truths are established by faith. Political truths are established by incessant repetition." Now, we've kind of become aware of that, what people are accepting because they've heard it over and over again, often in an echo chamber. The one that I remember, I mentioned also some time ago from Ted Koppel, who gave a graduation oration about our generation 30 years ago, treating the commandments as if they're suggestions. And he felt that that was loss. There needs to be something that is etched in stone. I keep thinking of that image at the end of Dragnet. Some of you remember Dragnet and that muscular arm etching into rock. Well, we need something, he was suggesting, that is etched into rock, although we may want to spend our whole life trying to find out what that is. Great poetry has been read at graduations. I'm sure Robert Frost's Often, Two Roads Diverged, and I chose the road less traveled, and that has made all the difference. And I remember this poetry from my high school graduation, which was a while ago. John Donne, no man is an island, everyone is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. Every man's death diminishes me. Therefore never send to know for whom the bell tolls. And how does that end? It tolls for thee, John Donne. So while I haven't been asked to give graduation orations, I would say to any graduates who would listen things like this. Life is a search. There are many classical, age-old symbols of this human quest, thirst for a meaning to it all, the Holy Grail, the Ark of the Covenant. Use meet to think about what life is about and to hope that we are growing in understanding what life is about. That's in large part what religion is, and we respect each other's findings. I'm often reminded of the great bumper sticker competition on Long Island in the 70s. Evangelical Christians produced en masse a bumper sticker that said, "I found it." I guess you were supposed to say, "I see your sticker, just what is it you found?" But most people knew better than to ask. The numerous Jews on Long Island minted their own bumper sticker, and it said, "We never lost it." Mine would have just said, "I'm still looking." Life is a search, you graduates, and when the search is over, you are too. And secondly, I would say to them, priority is the main thing in life, and it keeps changing. Or as that poster I've mentioned before, the main thing in life is to keep the main thing the main thing. The fact is, we will be remembered that by the people we care most about for what we made our priority. When I had young children and got an occasional Sunday off, I used to think I could stay home and read the paper. But my kiddies, seeing Daddy at home, had another idea. Now I have one more kitty, and that four-legged last child of ours has a definite idea about what the main priority in life is. And she's like my shadow whenever I'm home. I think one of the meanings of the first commandment, "Thou shalt have no other gods before me," is to protect us from the damage we do to ourselves and to others when we get priorities wrong, as if the meaning of life is whatever the moment brings or is all about me. And so to the grads, I would have to quote the great bard, "To thine own self be true, and it follows as the night the day, thou canst not be false." With all the encouragements, the seductions to join the conversation, to keep up with the trending, to like and to poke someone else's posting, how do you do that? To thine own self be true. Maybe Kipling's "If" would help. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you. That true to self is part of the search. The former president, the one before the former president, at a grad's address, quoted his graduating daughter when President Obama asked her in one moment, "What should I do?" And all she could say was, "You be you, you be you." How many times have we said that to people we care about, and possibly to the one we see in the mirror? This is Pride Month, and we want to say to gay and trans people, you be you. I read in the paper last week that there is a commission or a committee or a research place, I forget exactly what, looking into how many gay and trans people are committing suicide. That's an awful thought, but we ought to know it, and we ought to act upon it. I saw on the Times website this morning that gay young people are feeling more acceptance among their peers, non-gay peers, but they're feeling more encouragement to go back to the closet from the society, the country at large, because they know almost half of the country, or the party that represents almost half, doesn't want to get real. You be you. I would also say to grads that criticism, well-meant criticism, does more for us than praise. Many of my vintage bought a poster for their refrigerator that said you need to remind children in a ratio of like 10 to 1, 10 units of praise to 1 unit criticism, because somehow the sting of criticism lasts longer, especially belittling criticism. But how many people have we known that have seen better in us than we have and challenged us in an encouraging way to believe in ourselves? I like the gem of the poet Burns. "'Tis a gift to see ourselves as others see us." But how many want that gift? I would also say to grads, good and evil are clearly sorted, readily definable, and easily distinguishable only in fiction or in the small-minded. In life, they are always mixed. In our early years, and warping on this subject, the good guys rode white horses. The bad guys rode horses of color. Do you remember, some of you remember, Hopalong Cassidy? Wasn't his horse white? His outfit was white, remember that? Hopalong. I happened upon a great ethicist living near my last full-time assignment in Connecticut, and I invited him, Professor Roger Shin, to a community forum on the raging foreign policy debate at the time. It was in the early part of this millennium, and it was about the invasion of Iraq. Professor Shin complimented a former president on his personal victory over alcoholism, but then faulted him on him or anyone who identified the axis of evil as wholly in some other people or country. Shin's point was the axis of evil turns in everyone, and we all have to choose and work on being our best. Labeling others as evil is just too easy, historically common and damaging. And if we aren't going to be hypocrites, we have to admit it diverts, distracts, and helps escape self-scrutiny. And religions almost universally have enabled that. Mine is the right one. Mine is better than yours. And I would say to grads, your life is far more eloquent than anything you will ever say. We say things like actions speak louder than words, and your deeds are so loud I can't hear your words. I love Liza Doolittle's plea, don't talk of love if you're on fire. How does that end? Show me now. Well, not right now. And I would like to say to grads, life is a gift. It is a gift every day. If I could change anything about myself, it would be remembering that better. It is sad that it is often a crisis, an attack on one's health or someone we love, their health, or an attack on our nation that causes us to remember that. I was moved by an interview of Larry King with Peter Jennings some years ago. Jennings happened to be at his anchor desk early on that infamous September 11th, and he stayed at the post for all-day coverage. So King pressed him on how he got through the day professionally. He asked Jennings over and over, "Didn't you get emotional during the broadcast?" Jennings remembered turning to a staffer who handed him a note, "Call your children." And on the phone with them, he got emotional, and he turned back to his national audience and blurted out, "Call your children." If we had so many days left, we would have the choice of making the most of them. We have so many days left. I wish I remembered that better. And lastly, to the grads, I would say, the giving get far more out of life. How do you teach that? Who taught you? We can only hope to model it, because if we know that, it was shown to us. I keep going back to high school required reading. I hated required reading, which inspired me to seek out the classic comic books. You remember them, don't you? Did you get them for the same reason? I mean, I did the reading, honestly I did, but I wanted to be sure I got the point, and I could count on the classic comic books. Like Silas Marner, the man who loved his gold more than anything until it was stolen, and he discovered a child, a relationship. And Richard Cory, who had everything but a purpose. Remember the way that poem ends? Went home and put a bullet through his head? Hard to forget that one. And the ancient mariner, who cursed one of God's creatures, the albatross, and wound up wearing one. Lessons from English literature in miserliness. The giving get a lot more out of life. How do you teach that? I used to have large confirmation classes of 8th graders. I was reminded that I happened to have someone here today who was an 8th grader in my confirmation class. I won't pick on that person. But anyhow, I also have been reminded often that I was a fairly obnoxious 8th grader in the confirmation class I was in this newly found church, welcoming church that my brother and I went to. I thought I came up with really original questions, like what was the Almighty doing in all that time before we came about? I mean, did boredom make for people? Boredom is important. Maybe once in a while you have felt that way. I won't ask you where you have felt that way. But how do you teach? How do you teach people to be more giving and to show that the giving gets so much out of? I tried to emphasize from Jesus the importance of servanthood to these 8th graders. So the Sunday morning service of confirmation finally arrived and concluded with the sacrament of communion for the whole congregation. And to make the point one more time, I had the 8th grade new members serve the communion to the congregation. So at the service's end, they follow me to the back and stand at the door so people can greet and congratulate them after the service. One of the youth looks out into the hall, notices the congregants who have left lining up at the food, and see them getting into the sheet cake with the kid's name on top. Their name says the honorees of the day. So one of them says to the others in line with me, "Let's get out of here, they're eating our cake." So much for teaching servanthood. But whoever taught you that the giving get more out of life, you know you owe them. At a point in life, you do begin to think about your legacy, what you have lived for, and how you'll be remembered. Whatever words come, the humbling truth is, it is how you have lived that matters and will live on, especially in the people who have mattered to you. So will all you new graduates soon rise and sing 118, "This Little Light of Mine." Rise if able. As the chalice is extinguished, these closing words are from Langston Hughes. To you graduates, hold fast to dreams, for if dreams die, life is a broken winged bird that cannot fly. Hold fast to dreams, for when dreams go, life is a barren field, frozen with snow. Langston Hughes.